Here we go.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is
not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.
I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Did you think no one was watching?
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Your mission.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
To reclaim the American dream.
To be given the right of human beings to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities. By any means necessary.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
You've certainly come to the right place.
Welcome to another episode of the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon, broadcasting live from somewhere around Boston. It doesn't matter where. All that matters is that you're here with me. It's Friday, people. And if you've been working as hard as I have, you are so glad for the weekend. So today, we're going to deal with a couple of things, a couple of important things. We're going to deal with some issues. We're going to deal with what's going on in the world around us internationally. We're going to deal with some local, by local, I mean domestic politics, presidential election 2016, a lot of things that we're going to deal with today. But we're also going to have Freedom Friday. It's Friday, and we're just going to let our hair down and just do some things differently. So it won't be all seriousness, but we do have a lot of things to deal with, a lot of things going on in the world around us. So thank you for joining us. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the ride. We're glad that you joined us, and we're just here to deal with what we deal with. So big week in news, a lot of major things happening in the world around us. Particularly, I just want to kick it off talking about ISIS. Anyone who's listening to the news, you know what's going on. We know as much as they're letting us know about what's going on in the Middle East, particularly with ISIS. Listen in.
Of al-Baghdadi, but they are now moving towards the al-Assad airbase. These are ISIS forces, and Iraqi officials say that ISIS has sent at least 8 suicide bombers in that direction towards the airbase. They say so far they have killed that number, 8. So it is clearly still very much a fluid situation, but one where that base is under, it would seem, some degree of threat. US military has said that it has often consistently come under mortar and rocket fire. Nothing serious, nothing damaging. This could be very different. Chris, Alice.
So what's going on? The clip started in the middle of the clip, but that's okay.
ISIS
what's going on
new attack.
Is ISIS militants have taken full control over a western Iraqi town in early today. Security officials informed news media outlets. And what's particularly interesting about this particular situation is that they are within striking distance from a base with over 400 American soldiers who are training the Iraqi portions of the Iraqi military. So this is concerning. This is, I don't want to say alarming, but it is concerning. We have, and I don't want to use a lot of crazy expressions or dramatic. That's the word I'm looking for. Overly dramatic expressions. But we have the face of evil literally within striking distance from 400 of our soldiers. And so there's a lot of debate about what we should do. And when I say we, particularly what we as Americans, what is America? What is President Obama? What is our military going to do about ISIS? And so this week, President Obama officially sent language for a proposed resolution for the use of military force, authorization of the use of military force to Congress. And usually you would think that there would be that we would be unified on this matter. You know, an international threat such as ISIS, one that has to be dealt with. You would think we would be unified, but of course we're not. And people are falling, parties are falling along what you would expect. You have the Republicans who are seeking for broad permissions, broad authorizations for the president to go in and do whatever he needs to do, however he needs to do it, with ground forces, ground troops if necessary. And they don't want him to be confined to a limited time frame. They want him to be able to go in and to do whatever he needs to do. Democrats generally don't want ground forces involved. And it's much more nuanced than that in a lot of regards. But at least this is true. For the first time in over a decade that we've been at war, Congress is going to go about their official duty of authorizing the use of force. This is the first time since the passage of the last use of force during the onset of the Iraqi war. So we've been at war for over a decade, and this is the first time that Congress has had to request, or has had to debate, rather, the use of military force. So it's going to be interesting. It's a very important debate, and I'm curious as to where you fall in this matter. What is your opinion? What do you think? What do you think? How far should we go? Should we put ground troops? Should we send ground troops back to the middle? I mean, we literally just tried to leave that exact region, and now we're going back there, potentially going back there with ground forces, depending on what the final resolution is that Congress sends our way. So that's one of the major things that's going on. And you know what? I hate to do this, but I have to. You know, I don't pretend to be independent. I don't pretend to be so kumbaya, let's all get along. I am partisan. But I'm flexible in my partisanship, depending on who's doing the right thing when it's the right thing. That's who I am. But I have to do this. To the next Republican president, whoever you may be, and it may not be 2016, it may be 2016, but to the next Republican president, please remember, when you want to go to war, remember how long it takes us to get out of war. Could you do that for us? Could you remember that the last Republican president that took us to war, we are still mired in that same quagmire. That region has sucked us in for over a decade. Thousands of American lives have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqi lives and Afghanistani lives have been lost. Afghan lives have been lost. And for what? Just to destabilize the region even more? Yeah, but we needed to get Saddam Hussein out of there. Yeah. What was worse? Seriously, what was worse? I saw a cartoon. There's a political cartoon going around. The Butcher of Baghdad. That's how we refer to Saddam Hussein. What was worse? One bastard who was our bastard that we put in, or a whole host, an entire movement of crazed, you want to call them radical Islamists, the face of evil, barbarians. I mean, talk about the barbarians at the gate. I mean, they are there. And so what benefit did we get from going to take out Saddam Hussein? Weapons of mass destructions, nowhere to be found. So just a note. Just a note to whoever is running, speaking of presidential elections and Republican candidates, Scott Walker. Yeah, that was a hard segue. Whatever. Scott Walker over in the UK this week, warning to any Republican candidate. Listen, one thing I'm a proponent for. I'm going on a segue. Stay with me. One thing I'm a proponent for is a good fight. A good fight, and and by we, I mean Americans. Americans need the Republican Party to put up a good fight with a viable candidate that is going to challenge the Democratic Party on every level. It does America no good to have one party that has socially palatable candidates, being the Democratic Party, and then the other party having completely repugnant candidates that are just simply unelectable. That's not in the best interest of America. That might be in the best interest of partisan hacks. I'm not a partisan hack. I am not going to tout a party line. What I am a proponent for is the advancement of America. And I also think that the advancement of America, if done rightly, would be the advancement of human society, of mankind. Ultimately, I'm a proponent of pushing mankind forward. So if we push America forward, we can push mankind forward. We can't push America forward until we push the least among us forward. We have to, there's so many things, layers in that comment that I just made. But the bottom line is it does no one any good if we have one party that is a party of crazies. I mean, you guys' primary is kind of crazy. In all fairness, that's just the nicest. That's just the nicest way I can put it. The 2012 primaries, that was a circus. We need the Republicans to put up a very good candidate. And so far, it's the same foolishness, to put it lightly, as 2012. So Scott Walker coming back. Scott Walker goes to the UK, goes to London, and he decides to punt on a question of evolution. Right. And I understand he didn't want to deal with that. And maybe rightfully so. He hasn't taken the time to think or be thoughtful about this, because he's answering that question pins him in a corner of, what does he do about all of the not even just evangelical creationists? Has he taken the time to think about something as simple as how his faith lines up with evolution? It's going to be one or the other. Either you're going to be completely against the science of evolution, or you're going to not be against it, right? But he hadn't taken the time to think about that question that that question is going to come up. And see, that's the problem. We have to stop. No, you guys have to stop putting up candidates who have not thought these simple things through. Because how are they going to handle complicated situations, such as how are we going to crush ISIS without emboldening the Assad regime in Syria? That's a complicated question. How are we going to crush the enemy of our enemy without empowering our enemy? But if you can't answer a simple question as far as, do you believe in evolution? How are you going to take the international stage and lead us when we have serious situations going on? So Scott Walker, another victim of the trip to London, and another example of what we can look forward to the 2016,000 whatever. That's how I feel. That's how I feel about it. That's how he sounded in London. But that's what we have to look forward. Another thing I don't look forward to in this campaign season. Can we not have another Clinton versus Bush election? Please. I'm sorry. I know there are a lot of people who love Clinton. There are a lot of progressives who are all for her. And if it came down to it between a Clinton and a Bush, I might go out and pass out flyers for them, because the last thing I want, and I think a Republican, any Tea Partier, any conservative, I think you should feel the same way. The last thing you want is a third Bush. I mean, talk about dynasty. For the love of God, is this a democracy, or is this, a republic? We can get into the nuances, the differences of that. But for lack of a better word right now, is this a democracy or what? Or is the king passing down the throne from one son to the next? Can we not? I don't even want another Clinton, to be honest with you, to be perfectly honest with you, because it not only gives the impression, but it is dynastic. If I made that up or whatever, it becomes a dynasty. There are enough thoughtful, reflective, qualified people out there that we don't have to recycle a 1992 election. And we don't have to recycle the family name over and over and over again. That's one of the number one reasons. A lot of people, when we went to the 2008 elections, a lot of people didn't believe in Barack Obama because they couldn't pronounce his name. They called him Obama. They didn't believe in him because they believed more in the Clinton brand and the Clinton machine, not that I was anybody significant then. I'm not anybody important now, but I couldn't. I wanted somebody different. And America needs something different for the sake and the hope of democracy. It's already aristocratic. You already have to have gone to an Ivy League school. You already have to be able to raise. And speaking of raising money, Jeb Bush just had a campaign fundraiser. And then $100,000 a plate. He didn't raise $100,000. He had every plate was $100,000. Talk about buying an election. What? So for all intents and purposes, we are looking at, it's a foregone conclusion that Jeb Bush is going to be the Republican nominee. Who else can have a campaign and charge $100,000 a plate? That's why Mitt Romney is not in the race, by the way, mind you. He said he had other things to do and he wanted to see the future of the Republican Party. Translation, the old money who supported him last time, they've moved on and they've gone to the third Bush. Now, I hope Republicans, I'm going to give you a line. I'm going to give you a line out of one of my favorite movies. Republicans, this is your darkest hour. And one day, a Republican will rise from the Republican ranks and use the power of common sense to light your darkest hour. Because if you run another Bush, if another Bush wins, that would be one of the worst things that could happen to the American people. Because it's bad enough that elections are already bought and paid for. But to make it worse, you want to add on the power of family dynasties. All right, we're just getting started. It's Friday. We're going to have a little fun in our third segment. A lot of things to talk about. But I want you to stay tuned in for the ride. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show. We'll see you in a minute.
Hey, if you're like me, you're probably hearing the news that the economy is getting better, right? But there's one problem. You still don't have a job. Get back into the game with Chance.com, the state-of-the-art online employment connection for the new generation. Get access to millions of jobs on Chance that are actually hiring now. Stop searching for outdated job postings. Log on to Chance.com. Create a profile, and then be found. Make the connection you need to get hired today. If you're serious about your career, you've got to check this out. Chance.com. Get that job. Make that chance with Chance.com. JANZZ.com.
The traditional light bulb, a groundbreaking invention in 1879. It's time we switch to longer-lasting Energy Star light bulbs. They're more efficient than the old bulbs, like a text message is more efficient than a carrier pigeon. And they cut down on our energy costs. Because in our own groundbreaking age, we deserve a light bulb that saves us some cash. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
You feel petrified. You're struggling with your mortgage payments, not knowing what to do. You do nothing. But if you do something, you're far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making Home Affordable is a free government program. Call 888-995-HOPE to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about your options. Call 888-995-HOPE or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
It's 6:42 p.m. Time for Steve Plotto and his son Dylan to do the dishes. They talk about everything from the yuckiness of girls to the awesomeness of his soccer team. Sometimes they don't talk at all. Then, hey! The dreaded splash fight. It's Dad o'clock, and it's the best time of the day. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Buckle up for the ride. Give us a call, 857-600-0518.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So I believe it was last night, FBI Director James Comey gave a speech on the relationship between the police and minority communities. And, everybody kind of went crazy over the speech. A lot of people were like, just especially on the Black Lives Matter side of the equation, a lot of people were really excited about it. And, as I listened to it, I have to be perfectly honest. I had mixed feelings at best. I think he said a lot of good things, a lot of important things, but there were some things that I just downright disagreed with him on. So, hang on, let me just listen into this.
But racial bias isn't epidemic in law enforcement any more than it's epidemic in academia or the arts.
Okay, let me stop right there. This is a speech at Georgetown University last night, and he was dealing with the issues of race and racial bias and confrontations with the police and how do we move forward. And so there were a lot of good themes that he had. But as soon as I heard this line, as soon as he said this, one more time, I want to make sure you hear it clearly.
But racial bias isn't epidemic in law enforcement any more than it's epidemic in academia or the arts.
Okay, here's the problem with that. It may not be more epidemic in police enforcement than it is in the academia and in the arts, but academia and the arts aren't charged with policing our communities. They don't have the authority to arrest. They don't have the authority of force and violence. So, that may be true. Statistically, it may be true that the police forces around the nation are not plagued anymore with bias than the academia and the arts. That may be true. However, I don't see many professors gunning down people in our communities. They don't have that responsibility. There's a complete difference between not being selected to be a part of or not being accepted into a university and police arresting you and placing you inside of the judicial system, the justice system, because of their biases. There's a complete difference. So, but I said, you know what? Let's not judge him. Let me not be biased by his opening sentence. What else did he have to say?
Something happens to people in law enforcement. Many of us develop different flavors of cynicism that we work hard to resist because they can be lazy mental shortcuts. For example, police officers on patrol in our nation's cities often work in environments where a hugely disproportionate percentage of street crime is committed by young men of color. A mental shortcut becomes almost irresistible and maybe even rational by some lights. The two young black men on one side of the street look like so many others that officer has locked up. Two white men on the other side of the street, even in the same clothes, do not. The officer does not make the same association about the two white guys, whether that officer is white or black. The officer turns towards one side of the street and not the other.
Okay. Now he has my attention. Now he's talking. Because in that clip, he helps me to understand that he understands the nuances of what happens in a split-second decision when a police officer sees two black guys on the side of the road compared to when they see two white guys on the side of the road, even if they're dressed exactly the same. He confesses that because of previous experiences, policemen can get jaded. And in all fairness, I'm going to be completely transparent and fair here. In all fairness, I understand how that happens. I understand exactly how that happens. I taught in one of the roughest neighborhoods. Well, the neighborhood wasn't that rough, but the kids that we serviced, we taught at-risk students 2 to 3 years behind, dropout prevention, for lack of a better word. And the mindset and the mentality and the drive or the lack thereof, that would burn you out as a teacher. So I can understand, in all fairness to police officers, if all they do all day, every day, is drive around some of the toughest neighborhoods and deal with some of the toughest characters that we have to see, that our neighborhoods have to offer, then it is very highly possible. It's very likely, in fact, that they become cynical and they begin to judge. At least he's admitting it. And they begin to judge, not every single one of them, but those who have become jaded and cynical begin to judge someone who can be potentially innocent the same exact way they judge someone who is completely guilty because of the common factor of their skin color. All right. He gets it. But that can't be an excuse. I had to decide that teaching just wasn't for me. I had to decide because of how jaded I became. You know, and if anybody's listening from that area, just be quiet. Don't say anything. You know, I had to decide that, you know, because I could not go a day without cussing my students out because of how ignorant they were acting, that teaching just may not be for me. And so some of these police officers who are jaded, you know, the problem is you need to do something with them because they have the authority to cause harm to some people who, regardless of their crime, regardless of what that person has done, they are still a human being, and you still have the responsibility of representing the force, of representing our city, of representing our collective consciousness and decision, our social contract. You still have a duty to respect their civil rights, no matter what they have done. And if you become so jaded that you can't do that, then maybe you guys need to switch, you know, put them on rotation, do something, take them out of the hood and put them in the burbs and let the burbs have to deal with their jaded cynicism, you know, because everyone, regardless of what they've done, deserves a fair chance to be processed, even if they've committed a crime. And I knew as a teacher, my time was up because I used to have to, I had alarms. I'm just going to tell you, I had alarms on my phone every 10 minutes reminding me, don't cuss the kids out today. You know, because we live in the YouTube society, and I didn't have time to be, you know, somebody putting me on YouTube for cussing them out because you can, it gets to you. It gets to you. Any teacher out there, you can attest to the fact that you pour everything that you have into these students, and the students sometimes spit back in your face. Now, imagine if you were a police officer. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not taking up for them. I'm just trying to identify. I'm trying to see the world through their eyes for a moment because we need them to desperately see the world through our eyes. We need them to understand what we're saying. So we can't have a conversation just yelling at them. We have to take a moment to listen to them just as much as we need them to listen to us. All right. So Director Comey, he had a couple of other things to say. Let's keep listening in.
A century ago, the Irish knew well how American society and law enforcement viewed them as drunks, ruffians, and criminals. Law enforcement's biased view of the Irish lives on in the nickname we still use for the vehicles we use to transport groups of prisoners. It is, after all, the paddy wagon. The Irish had some tough times, but little compares to the experience on our soil of Black Americans. That experience should be part of every American's consciousness, and law enforcement's role in that experience, including in recent times, must be remembered. It is our cultural inheritance.
You can't see me, but I'm standing. Listen to what he said. He said, And he uses his own personal experience. That's the thing. You got to identify with people. That what we need more than anything else, besides yelling at each other, we need to identify and take a moment to see the world through someone else's eyes. And Director Comey, he said, let me show you the world through the lenses that I grew up. He's Irish. And he said that there was a time a century ago where no one knew better, with the exception of African Americans. No one knew better how the justice system could abuse you and judge you simply because of your ethnicity and your heritage and where you come from. So he said, look, he put it in perspective that he understood that the cultural biases against the Irish people at one time is comparable, not equal, but it's something that we can use to understand what black people are going through today. Okay, now he put an important sentence there. He said this. He said, but it cannot compare to what black Americans go through every single day. But more importantly than all that, he said something that I think somebody needs to tweet this out, make a meme of this. He said that experience needs to be in the consciousness of every American. That experience needs to be in the consciousness of every American. In other words, yes, we need to talk about it. Stop telling us not to talk about racism. Stop telling us, oh, if you just don't talk about it, then it'll go away. That's the dumbest thing I've heard in my lifetime yet. As if we didn't talk about cancer, cancer would go away. Or if a woman didn't talk about domestic violence, the domestic abuse that she's suffering, that it would go away. That is the most asinine logic I've ever heard. So stop telling us not to talk about this. What we need to do as a society, our collective consciousness needs to be aware of what the black experience has been and where we are today and what we need to transition to. He's not giving an excuse for black guys and for anybody. Forget about the race. He's not giving an excuse for crime. And he actually dug into this deeper. He said, I didn't quite agree with him on a couple of things that he said in terms of what's the problem? Is it that the system is unjust? Is it that judges are racist? Is it that cops are racist? And he went off on a segue explaining what the problem really is. I agreed with him on how he diagnosed the problem, but everything that he prefaced it with, one of the most important things that I disagree with was that he said, if the problem was bias, then all we would need to do would be to retrain and hire differently, and we could fix that problem. Well, Mr. Director, you need to do that anyway. You may not feel that racism and bias is such a huge problem statistically, but based on the encounters that we've seen throughout America, that needs to happen anyway. They need to be retrained. They need to be how you hire, your selective criteria. You need to change that. You need to start at the beginning, and you need to pay them more. Just like teachers, you need to pay the people who have to deal with the toughest parts of our society. They need to be paid well. The worst thing that you could do is take a guy who has to worry about his bills and lights, and he can't quite afford to make ends meet, and throw him out into a community that he knows nothing about, can't identify with, already biased by biased statistics. Already his mind is already jogged, is already clouded by the statistics. Yeah, I'm struggling with that word. By the statistics that have been promulgated. Take him and combine that with the frustration of not making ends meet and throw him in the community, you're asking for problems. So you do need to retrain them. You do need to look at how you hire them, and you need to pay them more. Bottom line. So I didn't agree with that component, that part of his speech, but his diagnosis was apt. His diagnosis was sound. He said there is a reason why there are more African American men engaged in our criminal justice system than any other race. There is a reason why more African American men commit petty and violent crimes at a statistically significantly higher rate than any other race. There is a reason. Now, some people like to stop right at the statistics and say that the reason is in the skin color. Yes, people say that. And if that's not the archetype definition of racism, I don't know what it is. The only better way to describe that is institutionalized racism. When you look at statistics and blame the fact of those statistics on the skin color of a person without exploring anything else, that is the bona fide definition of racism. But the director didn't even go there. He went to the real problem. The real problem is economic, socioeconomic. When you have an entire community who are depressed economically, who have fewer opportunities than any other community at a significantly higher rate, when you have a community that's caged in, you are going to get more violence than anywhere else. And so the director dealt with that, and I appreciated him taking a minute. I could go into it more, but I don't want to stay on that bully pulpit too long. He took the time necessary to view the world through the eyes of someone else. And you know what? I think that's what is most important. The best example I can give you is me, because that's the only person I know well enough to speak for is me. I'll speak for myself. You know, I'm not a feminist, right? Anybody who knows me knows that I'm not naturally a feminist. In some ways, in some soft ways, not hard ways, but in some soft ways, you might think I'm misogynistic and even sexist. I reflect on myself. I have a tendency to objectify women, not in ways that are important, But anyway, let me get off that. The point I'm trying to make is this: I'm not a feminist, but I'm not a sexist. Right? I'm not a male chauvinist pig. But because I had never experienced catcalling, I never saw catcalling. And catcalling is when somebody's going down the street, a woman is going down the street, and guys harass her verbally, and talk about her body and what they want to do to her. Right? Because I was never guilty of that. And because I had never seen it myself, I thought it didn't exist. Or I thought it didn't exist in a way that was so significant for people to be in an uproar about it. Okay. Now, I was not listening. I even asked my wife about it. I'm like, babe, did you ever experience it? Have you ever seen it? And she told me she's seen it before. She never experienced it directly herself, but she's seen it in other circumstances. But I still wasn't listening. I wasn't listening. And I was trying to tell women what their experiences with catcalling was and was not. And it wasn't until I saw it myself. It wasn't until I got off the train, the T in Boston, and saw this guy go from zero to crazy in no time and start harassing a woman. It wasn't until I saw it myself that I realized that I was part of the problem. I was part of the problem because I hadn't experienced it and I wasn't guilty of it. Therefore, I didn't think it exists. What am I trying to say? I'm saying this. If I had just listened instead of trying to tell somebody what their experience as being a woman was or wasn't, then I would have been able to hear what they were trying to say. And I'm saying that with regard to racism. I'm saying that with regard to any other ism. We have to start listening. Listen to what you may not be guilty. You probably, listening to me, you're probably not a racist. You're probably not a homophobic person. You're probably not an Islamophobic person, right? But just because you're not guilty of it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And we have to stop trying to tell people what their experiences are being a black woman. And we have no experience whatsoever being a black woman. We can't tell women, we can't tell black people in general what your experience is. There's no such thing as racism. You have no experience being black. So director Comey, he took the time to listen, and he expressed to us what happens when you listen. And I think that's the most important thing that we can do. We have to start listening to people and stop waiting for us to have to see it ourselves. If you have to wait to see racism, to believe that racism exists, then you're part of the problem just as much as I was part of the problem, not thinking catcalling was a bigger problem as it was until I saw it firsthand. Why do we have to see it firsthand when we could listen to the people who experience it every day? Let me get off my soapbox. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and deal with a lot more. Actually, no, it's Freedom Friday. We're going to have a good time when we come back.
You're tuned in to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Join the conversation, 857-600-0518.
Looking for the right business opportunity? Need the right product, the right marketing plan, and the absolute best training in the world? Well, look no further. The Elite Team. Every leader in time excels. They believe the key ingredients in becoming successful in life and in business are just a keystroke away. Go to www.eliteteamsite.com. That's www.eliteteamsite.com. The Elite Team has a system in place that will move you closer to achieving your goals and dreams. Visit www.eliteteamsite.com or TonyFlemingEnterprises.com today.
College is important, but it can also be expensive. College Planning Services is a group of educators, administrators, counselors, and other licensed professionals that work together to provide the necessary services, networks, and information to reach students that are serious about getting a college education. College Planning Services partners with financial institutions, corporate sponsors, and other major players in the global market to strategize in building a pool of information regarding financial aid, scholarships, and funding information to assist students in preparing to access the essential resources to build upon their path to an educational future. Learn more at collegeplanningtoday.com and let us help you start your college career.
Do you want to take your business to the next level? Ultimate Business Solutions provides the support you need to increase your customer base and sell more products and services online. Specializing in graphic arts, web development, and internet marketing, Ultimate Business Solutions creates the face of your business. If you're looking for a custom logo, dynamic website, or popping marketing material, call Ultimate Business Solutions today at 404-704-2197 or visit www.ultimatebizsolutions.com. Ultimate Business Solutions. Let us create your future.
Do you have tax issues, owe back taxes, or need tax relief? Contact L&B Tax Service today. L&B offers you over 15 years of expertise and first-class tax service for individuals, professionals, and business owners. With nationwide service, you can easily find a location near you. Contact one of our tax professionals through our website, lbtaxservice.com. That's www.lbtaxservice.com. L&B Tax Service Incorporated. Tax professionals that you can trust.
You've tuned in to The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Hey, no, no, hey,
all right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I only have a few minutes left in this hour-long show. And listen, I want to just say something really quickly, something completely off the script. One of my, or not one of my producers, my only producer, because we're a very small show, obviously, was concerned about my last segment and because of some of the things I started to say. And because, I guess rightfully so, we live in a soundbite world, right? And someone can take my last segment and cut a soundbite and make me the enemy of X when I was actually saying something to defend X, right? Or not even defend X, but just giving my honest opinion. Here's a rule of thumb for me and for this show going from now to the show is over. We're going to have real conversations, and we're going to be open. We're going to be transparent, and we're going to say some things that are going to make some people mad. And we're going to make mistakes. But what we're not going to do is apologize. We're not going to apologize for doing the right thing. Right. So the point is this. If you want a realistic conversation, you've come to the right place. If you want something that's politically correct 100% of the time, I am completely incapable of doing that. So you might as well change the channel now. You might as well change your close the website window right now, because I'm completely incapable of giving you something that's 100% politically correct. I absolutely can't stand political correctness because it stifles conversation and debate. It stifles why, people want to be able to be free to say what's on their mind, even if they're wrong. How can you help someone see the right thing unless you hear and are willing to hear them say the wrong thing? So, all the political correct people who are, upset about things, this might not be the show for you. You can get some good sound bites, but anyone who listens on a regular basis knows that one thing I only stand for one thing. The bottom line for me is what is right. If I'm wrong on something, if I'm wrong, then I'll apologize for being wrong. Just like I did. I've consistently worked on myself with regard to women issues, which is why I said at the beginning when I said I'm not naturally a feminist, I'm learning. I'm learning because of my natural biases. I have to overcome them. If you're not ready for a mature conversation like that, then you can miss me. You can not tune into my show. I can broadcast for free. I'm not worried about that. So that's the last bit of hangover from the last segment. It's Friday, people. It's Friday. And you've been working all week long. I've been working all week long. I just stopped working 2 full-time jobs and a part-time job. I just stopped doing that. I was working from 8 in the morning to midnight. And so this is my first Friday that I haven't worked from 8 in the morning to midnight. So I'm excited. It's Freedom Friday, and we're going to have a little fun. It's Freedom Friday.
It's Friday night. It's Friday. You ain't got no job. And you ain't got shit to do.
It is Freedom Friday. And we've got plenty of jobs. I just like that clip, even though it's not accurate. We got plenty of work and got plenty of things to do. But we just want to have a good time. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. You've been working hard. You need to relax. So I'm going to let my hair down on this segment and kind of give you just a little bit of insight into who I am and the type of stuff truthfully, I'm quiet as it's kept. I'm a complete geek, a complete nerd. What gets me excited? It's politics. What gets me excited are great speeches. Great speeches. I am a speech connoisseur. That's one of the things that really gets me excited. I am a Doctor Who fan. I have been a Doctor Who fan for many years now, and you don't know who Doctor Who is. That's okay. Welcome to my world. Just Google it real quick and just get ready to be sucked into the rabbit hole. It does not end. It's 50 years of greatness. And so I wanted to combine a couple of my favorite things, which are great speeches, with my love for politics and my love for Doctor Who. Sometimes we'll deal with The Walking Dead. We'll do some of those things. We'll because I'm a great fan of Walking Dead, the greatest series on TV right now, second only to Doctor Who. And if Star Trek: The Next Generation was on, I would it would all be second to that. But it's not. So Walking Dead. And anyway, so I want you to hear. I'm going to play a couple of little snippets of my favorite quotes and speeches, and we're going to dissect them really quickly, and then we're going to get out of here. We got 10 minutes. Let's have a little bit of fun real quick.
Any moment now. He's a-coming.
Who's coming?
The Doctor.
You are the Doctor?
Yep. And I always will be. But times change, and so must I. We all change. when you think about it, we are all different people all through our lives. And that's okay, that's good. You've got to keep moving so long as you remember all the people that you used to be. I will not forget one line of this. Not one day. I swear. I will always remember when the doctor was me.
I will always remember when the doctor was me. One of the greatest speeches of Doctor Who universe. Now, why am I playing this? I'm playing this because the message that's in it, you got to dissect the things that these people say. Sometimes TV gives you enough meat, something that you could really learn from. And so 2-second Doctor Who history, the whole premise is a guy from another planet who has the ability to change everything about him. Let's say he gets mortally wounded and he's dying. Well, he has a trick. He changes, he regenerates and becomes a totally different person, but his life continues. And in this segment, he's talking about all the different times at all the points of our lives that we change and we're no longer the same. And the fact of the matter is, we all do that now. Everyone who's living. You shouldn't be the same person at 30 that you were at 20, right? So we're all different people all throughout the different stages of our lives. And the most important thing is that we just don't forget who we used to be. In other words, don't forget where you come from. I love that because my life just, and probably yours, you've gone through changes. You're a totally different person now at 35 than you were when you graduated high school. And that's the way it's supposed to be. You have to mature. You have to grow. Each iteration of you should be better than the last one. Every time you change, you should change for the better. Why change for the worse? You know what I mean? At a previous time in my life, I thought one way. I thought one way politically. I thought one way ideologically. I thought one way. But now, with new experiences, you should be a brand new person. You shouldn't even recognize, because you've changed for the better. You shouldn't even recognize the person that you used to be. If you're the same person now at 35 that you were at 30, then you're boring. That's the way I see it. And so you should be dynamically changing. And that's what the doctor says to me. Okay, so I got another clip here, and let me see if I can get this one right. This one's from a really bad movie. The movie was really, I think the movie was horrible, but this speech was dope. The movie was Any Given Sunday. The speech was by Al Pacino, Inch by Inch.
Life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw with our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's gonna make the fucking difference between winning and losing. And dying. That's a team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals.
Man, either we heal as a team, or we die as individuals. My producer said, you got to love the internet. No need to worry about bleeps. I actually meant to bleep out that word just cause, I might say it in my own time, but I'm going to do my best not to say it on the air. But to the point, Al Pacino, great speech, horrible movie. Horrible movie, but great speech. We either live together as a team or we die as individuals. Now, yeah, I mean, I want to break that apart and just, elucidate how that is applicable to American society. I can tie all these things together. One of the things I do well is I could tie stuff together, things that just make no sense to you. I can show you the how it's seamlessly interwoven into my narrative. But I think you can see it. You know what I mean? We either live together as Americans or we die together as individual, hateful, ideological people. That's what you come to my show for. I am who I am. I lean left, but I lean towards what is correct, not right ideologically, but what is right, as in the terms of correct. And we have to do this together. All right. So I've got a few more minutes. One last one. Greatest movie speech of all time. Greatest movie speech ever. Great movie. I know a lot of conservatives absolutely hate this movie. I love this movie. I have it, and I know my wife is tired of watching it. I watch it at least whenever I watch it. You ever do that with movies? Like you don't watch it for a while, but when you find it, you start watching it every single day or at least once a week. The American President, speech by President Andrew Shepard.
America isn't easy. America is advanced citizenship. You've got to want it bad because it's going to put up a fight. It's going to say, you want free speech? Let's see you acknowledge a man whose words make your blood boil, who's standing center stage and advocating at the top of his lungs that which you would spend a lifetime opposing at the top of yours. You want to claim this land as a land of the free? Then the symbol of your country cannot just be a flag. The symbol also has to be one of its citizens exercising his right to burn that flag in protest. Now show me that. Defend that. Celebrate that in your classrooms. Then you can stand up and sing about the land of the free. We have serious problems to solve, and we need serious people to solve them. And whatever your particular problem is, I promise you, Bob Rumson is not the least bit interested in solving it. He is interested in two things, and two things only: making you afraid of it and telling you who's to blame for it. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how you win elections. If you want to talk about character and American values, fine. Just tell me where and when, and I'll show up. This is a time for serious people, Bob, and your 15 minutes are up. My name is Andrew Shepard, and I am the president.
Yeah. Somebody just, my brother just texted me and said, "Where's the fun? Where's the good time, Ben?" I told you guys, at the end of the day, at the bottom of my equation, as complicated as I may be, at the bottom of my equation, I am a complete geek nerd. So you may not have just had fun, but I had fun. I started the segment. It was a little bait and switch. I started the segment with Johnny Kemp and Belle Biv DeVoe. Yeah, I have fun like that too. But today, I tell you what, here's the deal. If you want to have fun your way on Fridays, you call in 857-600-0518, and we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. We'll play whatever you want us to play within reason. We'll have a good time the way you want to have a good time. But today, seeing as this is the Benjamin Dixon Show and nobody called in this last segment, I'm going to have fun the way I want to have fun. Andrew Shepard, ladies and gentlemen, the television, the movie president of the United States. American citizenship is advanced citizenship. That's the moral of the story for the day, of the whole show, probably the whole week. Matter of fact, probably my entire existence on the internet broadcasting to you is going to be about this. If we are going to survive and move forward, then we are going to have to make room in our society for people with whom we adamantly and vehemently disagree. That's it. We cannot move forward as a nation and as a society and as humankind. We can't move forward unless we make room for people who we disagree. And so, yes, I have some ideas that you're going to disagree with, and there's some things about you that I completely disagree with. But you know what? There's room for both of us. There's room for all of us. And it just so happens, that the American Constitution gives us those liberties. So, That's me. That's where we are. That's the Benjamin Dixon Show. I had a good time with you today. Thanks for tuning in. This is our first week, 3rd episode. We'll be back on Monday at 1 p.m. and we'll have another good time then. Thanks for joining me. Benjamin Dixon Show.